Hey guys, so the background footage for the start of this video is some old school Siege Year 1 ranked highlights, and the reason why I wanted to do this video is basically based off of a tweet or a retweet that I saw from Pangu that showed Ubisoft made $440 million in revenue, and I wanted to make sure I tweeted out that people can get confused by making revenue. The words making revenue, it makes people think that they actually made $440 million, which is not actually the case. They did not have a $440 million in profit. Not to mention this source is a third party, and it's not even something that comes from Ubisoft itself, so we won't really know what they actually made. Activision Blizzard has like an 8% profit margin. I went and looked it up, and Ubisoft, it looks like they're around 10%. It was harder for me to read their earnings report, but so if you use that information, you can basically say, if Ubisoft made $440 million in revenue, they made somewhere around, 40 million, like 40 million, 44, 35, somewhere around that area in terms of profit off of Siege. So they didn't make almost $500 million. They made something closer to 40, but that's all speculation. They could have lost money. They could have made way more. We won't know, but I wanted to make sure I tweeted that out and clarified it. The second part is where things get a little more interesting. I used the word that Siege is aggressively monetizing their game, and Intero replied to it and thought I was joking, but I do believe it's the case that they aggressively monetize their game. It's not that I'm saying it's unfair or forced. By aggressively monetizing their game, there's a lot of things you can buy with money. Not everyone has a lot of time to get renown, and buying these things become an option for them and a good source of income for Ubisoft, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not aggressive. Things that you can buy with money are headgear, outfits, elite skins, charms, operators, the season pass, renown boosters, which people can use to get renown faster and buy alpha packs, and then gun skins. So there's definitely a lot of things that you can buy with money. These amount of items, I believe, kind of puts them more in the aggressive side. You could argue that it's more neutral, but it's definitely not tame. There's many items that can be bought with renown, but there's also plenty that can only be bought with real money. But again, you're not forced to buy them. The other part of the reason why I included the word aggressive involves outfits and headgear. This game is a one-shot headshot game, and having headgear and outfits being items that you can actually buy is a little strange to me. I'm going to get more into that here with some footage and explain why I'm not a fan of outfits and headgear. Items that you can buy, some of them only with money, I do believe impact the game competitively and even lead to more hit reg complaints. And these hit reg complaints are actually pretty common. And I've definitely had times where I could confirm that there was bad hit reg. But a lot of the times I found I thought the game had bad hit reg, but I actually was shooting through someone's helmet or outfit and not actually hitting their hitbox. The way that headgear and outfits work is that you need to shoot their actual body or head, but if an operator or person chooses cosmetics that were way bigger than their body, things become a lot more difficult to know where you were supposed to shoot. People will say, just aim for the face or the head, and it's that easy. I have over a 59% headshot ratio in Siege, with 20k kills and a 1.7 kill to death ratio in Ranked. My headshot ratio and even KD is on the higher side when it comes to pros and top players. I definitely would aim for the face or head more if I was able, but there's tons of instances where I can't actually tell where the face is to shoot it. I've personally had so many of these instances where I know I've shot through pieces of their body or headgear because I couldn't confirm what piece of their body or head I was actually shooting at. The point I'm trying to make is I get a lot of headshots, more than most people, and I could get way more if the game actually told me better where their face or head hitbox actually was. So let's finally get into some common examples with some footage now. First, we'll start off with Sledges Elite Skin. Just to give an example of what hitboxes look like, Sledges Elite Skin is a little baggier, and you can see some shots going through clothing, and obviously some of his gadgets, which is normal on most operators. There's not a ton of space, but there will be some instances of missed shots you felt should have landed. The hitbox issue here is more minor though, and the outfits and elite skins are more impacted by their colors blending in with the walls and other objects. I could generally live with outfits being in the game. Headgear is a different story though. We'll come back to outfits later. So in regards to all the headgear in these clips, I've told Shift, who is helping me test, to make sure he can get a headshot if I asked him to. This is important as me shooting at someone who can't actually shoot me and I can't see their actual head doesn't really matter. Neither one of us would be getting a headshot in that scenario. These examples will show instances where I thought I was aiming at a head, but it was actually just the helmet and wasn't a hitbox. It's also important to note that these tests are in more ideal situations. No one is moving, we're both leaning the same direction, There's no dust particles kicking up. There's no muzzle smoke being fired from the player that will obscure vision of the player's head. It's as clear as it's going to get here on Border. A lot of headgear options for operators are pretty basic and not too crazy. However, there are some options for headgear that are too extreme and will cause hitbox confusion. Blackbeard's top hat, for one, being an example of some extra space in his head. This problem becomes more of an issue the farther away the character gets. It's easier to tell where someone's face is when you can actually face them face to face. But once we start bringing in some long angles to play, you can see I'm missing shots and it's hard to tell if he's even wearing a top hat at all. How am I supposed to know he had a top hat on and I'm actually shooting that top hat? This is with an ACOG too, so imagine what something looks like with the holo. Zoomed in here shows a bit more detail of what's going on. Thatcher has a similar top hat and also has some extra room above his head, and this also becomes more of a problem the farther away the operator is. These may seem like abnormal angles, and to an extent that's true, but utilizing pixel type peaks and pixel angles become much more common the higher rank you are. The same results occur here as what happened with the Blackbeard. I'm shooting what looks like to be his head, but it's just the top hat. With super extra zoom and an ACOG, you can make out a small portion of his face, but a good chunk of his head is still the top hat, which isn't actually the face or the head hitbox. This Kapkan headgear is only purchasable with R6 credits, and you cannot spend renown on it, and it has one of the larger tips on any headgear that I've seen. Here you can see me showing where the head hitbox actually starts. This clip showcases the same Kapkan headgear fairly close, and I'm using an ACOG and just hitting air. That's a big chunk of his head that I can't shoot, and holding angles like this is fairly normal on maps at higher ranks. Shift said he could see a pixel of me though and fired and hit me just fine. This instance here is Jackal wearing the Savannah headgear, which looks a little bit bigger than his standard headgear, and he's holding a pixel peak angle that is not typically used, but we're using it here as an example to show the confusion of headgear hitboxes. Imagine both of these objects he's behind are not wallable, so we can simulate a typical pixel peek from players. I'm firing at what has to be his head as he's crouched, but it's going right through his helmet. Shift could see me just fine and could return fire if he wanted. This clip here is a very long angle on Hibana, and I'm shooting her hoodie. In most normal situations, you wouldn't even be able to tell it was a Hibana. It could be the side of an IQ or a Jackal, who knows. That's the point. So you're not supposed to shoot where I'm aiming. I'm just shooting at what looks like someone's head and can barely even recognize a face. Same instance here with IQ. In a normal situation, we wouldn't even know this was an IQ. And the key thing is here is that Shift can headshot me. He has a clean shot on me, so taking your time to figure out where the IQ's head might be, even though you're not going to know it's an IQ, is just asking to get killed. You need to fire what looks like a head as fast as possible, otherwise you're dead. There's no slow decisions at higher ranks. Let's change some things up here a bit and show some simple confusion here with Monty. While my crosshair appears to be on his helmet, it goes through and hits him in the shoulder. This is a common complaint for hit reg. In a faster paced scenario, you shoot through the helmet, but you thought it hit his head. Then the blood splatters up on his face, and you believe it to be a hit reg issue. It's not. It's just overcomplicated headgear hitboxes and big helmets. The blood here is actually more tame. There's instances where blood can get really crazy. And in this instance, the blood actually came more out of the back of his body, where a lot of times the blood will go in front of his face instead, thus causing some major confusion on whether you got a headshot or not. To be fair, I was definitely aiming at the edge of his helmet and not square to his face. The point is that in a fast-moving game, you're going to shoot through helmets and hit someone's shoulder. The blood will cover the operator's face, and you'll be wondering why your headshot didn't register. This quick clip of Monty's helmet is from the previous test where I was shooting him through his helmet. It's a little bit bigger than his normal helmet, and where does Monty's chin start here, and are we supposed to know? We can't see most of his face to even tell, and this is point blank. Rook is here holding a really blurry angle behind a shield, and I'm aiming at a piece of his head, but it goes through and hits his shoulder instead. Is this bad hit reg or really just confusing headgear hitboxes? I haven't touched on outfits that much, and this is a good spot to talk about it. I'm holding an angle in the hallway with Ash's Elite skin that was free a while ago, and it's a very bland gray or brown color. I almost completely mix in the hallway, and Shift can barely see me. If I didn't tell Shift I was standing there, I'm not sure he would have known. Doc in this spot is still hard to see, but way easier than Ash due to his darker colors and mix of white. This is just one example of many where choosing the proper clothing for certain maps can impact competitive play. Twitch's elite skin is known to cause major problems for people being able to see her drone and just her in general, a skin that can only be bought with money. Smoke's holding a crouched angle here with the residue helmet, which is bigger than his normal helmet, and I can see an easy shot on the top of his head. Nope, that's not his head hitbox. While you're busy hitting air, Smoke's ready to line up a headshot on you. I'm Ash trying to hit Jaeger in the head here with him holding a pixel peak with a shield, and I'm just shooting through his helmet hitting the shoulder instead. With a holo, this is way worse. Honestly told Shift I thought I was hitting his head but was hitting nothing. Extra zoom here may help show what I was hitting a little. This is the Kapkan Executioner headgear from earlier that only cost R6 credits, and it's extremely hard to see where his head is actually at, and even worse with a holo. Shift kills me both times without an issue. So this was a lot of clips. So what was the purpose of all this? I could make hours more of these clips with different operators, different angles, different maps, with different lighting, and different skins and headgear. I need to say this again, that this was a testing environment and was much cleaner and easier to see than most, and we had time to fire and feel out where a hitbox might be. In normal Siege, there's way more dust, muzzle smoke, blood splatter, and particle effects that will obscure a player's head even more. I have a video on particle effects, which I'll add to the info section below. The major point is this game moves much faster than this, and it was easy for us to find a lot of angles where I thought I was hitting someone's head but was just hitting a piece of the helmet. At higher skill levels in Siege, people die so fast they won't be able to just sit there and try to figure out where someone's head hitbox actually starts. Your reaction will be to fire at their head as fast as possible and hope that the shot actually hits the head hitbox. Unfortunately, there's a lot of headgear options that bloat the player's head and adds to the confusion. This on top of the fact that Ubi forces you to pay money for some of these, and all of them can be bought with money. I find it strange that Ubi is purposely hurting their game competitively while making money off of it at the same time. This is partly why I feel their monetization can be on the aggressive side even though you're not forced to buy these items. It might be a good idea to pick up some of the more confusing headgear and skins and use them to your advantage. That's kind of a problem. I'm not making this video because I want this game to die. I really like this game and want to see it get better, and I want Ubisoft to keep making money. But these crazy headgear options don't really need to be that source of income. I didn't even show you the Bushido sets, which make 3 operators' heads look way bigger than they actually are, and they can only be bought with money, not even R6 credits. How are you supposed to know where Monty's head is if you can't see it? What about when you get farther away? What about when there's dust, muzzle smoke, or blood splatter? In a one-shot headshot game, the priority should be making the head hitbox as easy to understand as possible without making the game look stupid, boring, and simple. There's a middle ground, and I feel Siege is more on the extreme side still at the moment. After this entire video, maybe you think this isn't a big deal. Maybe it doesn't affect you. Higher skill ranks, if they pay attention, will see these types of missed shots happening more frequently as players figure out how to hold angles better. But you may not notice it as much at lower skill ranks. The only thing I can say is if you ever felt Hitreg has robbed you, it's very likely you've been robbed by shooting through a helmet and not realizing it. I'll end it here talking about Glaz's thermal, which I didn't actually show in this video. He's known to the community as having more than normal Hitreg issues. While some of them are indeed legitimate, I believe it's fair to say that the complaints are caused by these outfits and larger crazy headgear items. Glaz's thermal outlines the entire outfit and headgear, not the actual hitboxes. So if you in the community tend to think that Glaz has more than normal hitreg issues, this proves my point that outfits and headgear are at least a decent chunk of those hitreg issues. Basically, if you still really want more complicated skins and cool looking headgear, you'll have to deal with the confusing and bad hitreg, and you'll have to deal with a less competitive game including Pro League. In the meantime, Ubi is selling these skins for money. I hope this video was at least interesting, and at a bare minimum, I hope you learned something from it and it helped you understand how the game works. And thanks for watching.